Altitude is the second largest stress factor. So if I was going up to the mountains, I would be further stressed because of the altitude and less oxygen at the altitude. I could see that if I was eating chili that I had eaten, of course, all my life, that would stress me tremendously.
Our next guest, Dr. Færø, the author of The Pulse Cure, is a Norwegian general practitioner and emergency physician and has treated about 1% of the Norwegian population. The Pulse Cure is a groundbreaking exploration of how HRV data can revolutionize our approach to health. That was actually written by an immunologist.
I had to assume that when I get this device on my chest, I will see only harmony. And what I saw was totally the opposite. It was stress all the time. And I couldn't understand, so I had to detangle this and find out why am I stressed. And then I found that.
Hi, my name is Chris Burris. I'm a longevity expert and the chief scientist at a lab focused on a longevity molecule. My primary focus is to help people live longer and better lives with science. Make sure to subscribe and share so you and your friends can live longer and better, so you and your friends can live beyond the norms.
Hi, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Beyond the Norms Health and Longevity podcast. You may have one of these devices. Maybe it's a Whoop, maybe it's a Garmin watch, or maybe you've been considering getting one, but you aren't exactly sure why you should get one. What data are you going to get, and how might you use that data? Well, today we're going to dive deep into what wearables can tell us and what to do about what they tell us. I'm even going to throw up some of my Oura Ring data, whether it's on the screen or I'll just share it with you. Our next guest, the author of The Pulse Cure, is a Norwegian general practitioner and emergency physician and has treated about 1% of the Norwegian population. By the way, that just sounds amazing, I guess I was reading that piece of data. As you know, I love talking to medical doctors, and today Dr. Færø is no different. Just to share one of the blurbs about Dr. Færø's book, The Pulse Cure, that quote says, "The Pulse Cure is a groundbreaking exploration of how HRV data can revolutionize our approach to health." That was actually written by an immunologist, so you want to stay for this entire episode. A little bit more about Dr. Færø. He is a professional photographer and documentarian. He loves to travel, be it by bus or bike or car or kayak or even sailboat. He speaks 8 languages and has been in 80 different countries. I can assure you today we will only need one language. Dr. Færø, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Yeah, let's stick to English.
Then I'll have a fighting chance. All right, so before we jump into your area of expertise, I always like to go further back, like much further back, right? What was it like growing up, little Torkil? Where did you grow up? What were your parents like? If there was some event or someone you could pinpoint as the reason you would ultimately become a doctor, a health data junkie, and an author, what or who would that be?
Yeah, I have a normal upbringing for a Norwegian, nothing special, but got interested into traveling, wanted to see the world, wanted to understand everything, and wanted to live kind of 10 different lives into one. And I just found that being a doctor would be the best way to do that. I was considering being a journalist or so, but I thought, okay, if you're a doctor, you're on the front row to life. You can see anybody from their child or before they're born until after they're dead. So you get such an insight into what people are doing. And I also knew that in Norway, at least, you can work as a freelance doctor, like I have done for these 26 years, that I can work intensively, like 24/7 for 2 weeks or so, and then go off traveling or do photography or teaching photography. So that is what I've been doing, seeing a lot of patients, and to finance my adventures, having a sailboat and so, I needed to see a lot of patients. So it was kind of a side effect that I saw all these patients. And as I was teaching workshops, I was seeing patients, I saw both sick and healthy people. And that, I think, is a bit different to what most doctors see, which is just a row of sick people. And you just get used to that. And I think the perspective of seeing both sides of that has been important for my health journey. And I would say what changed my health journey from having it as a way to finance my travels and adventures was that my father died at 73, and I understood that, okay, if I don't take care of my health, I will not live to have those, 10 lives into one. That was my plan. I would maybe get 7, I needed 10 at least. So I understood that I have to do something different to live to be 90 or 100 preferably and still be vital. And that is how I got into preventative healthcare that we did not learn in medical school. We learned how to treat sick people. We did not learn how to be healthy. And I just had to learn that on my spare time because I wanted to live longer. And for many different reasons, that would be too long to explain. I ended up as an author of now 4 best-selling books here in Norway. I get recognized on the streets. People come up to me at the airports and so now I kind of live off writing books and seeing patients at the same time. No time for photography or documentary filmmaking. So I like to understand or teach how that you can use wearables, like you said. So that has been part of my health journey, to use the wearables to be able to track what I'm doing, because it becomes visible in the heart rate.
So you covered quite a lot of. There's a cool little parallel. The last person that I actually interviewed for this podcast was also a photographer. Started the largest photography school in Latin America, and now is into red lights, right, and red light therapy. So it's kind of cool that we're doing back to back. It's interesting you mentioned that you got to see sick and healthy people. And I think sometimes in the case of practitioners, it's not just that they're only seeing sick, they're actually seeing the exact same kind of sick, right? Like it's the same cardiovascular problem or the same cancer problem, right? So it's even more narrow than you just described. You and I have some parallels because it sounds like you kind of pursued medicine as a good way to have the flexibility and income to kind of meet your travel needs. I pursued entrepreneurship so that I could have a Lamborghini. Like that's like that is the parallel there. And so this is great. Thank you for kind of giving us some of that background. Your last name is Færø, and I know I'm mispronouncing it, so correct that. It's actually, is that one of the languages spoken in Norway, or Faroese or something? Did I get that wrong as I was digging into it?
No, it's just an island off the coast of Norway where I sometimes work, actually, like a really, really desolate island and wonderful nature. But it's a Norwegian island. It means a sheep island, so it's not as exotic.
Things are always better in another language. and you're kind of ruined because you speak 8 languages, so you need to find those even more exotic languages. Your book mentioned that in medical school you learned that medical facts have a half-life of 5 years. As you've gone throughout your career, what examples do you have that kind of highlight this axiom? Like, hey, things that I used to, or that the medical community used to lean on 5 years ago have actually changed. Do you have any good examples of that?
I think mostly it is what they didn't teach. That they didn't teach how exercise is important for health. Of course, we didn't know about epigenetics. We didn't know how important sleep was. And the gut microbiome and all of these things. So like 25 years ago, we were told that people who had a heart attack, they should just lie in bed until they got well. Now we know that we need to get them up and exercise, for example. So I think mostly it's what they didn't teach us, how to stay healthy. That was the biggest problem in my mind. Because it is possible to avoid the lifestyle diseases. What we really didn't learn was we learned all about these different diseases, and most of them, they would say, we don't know why we have them. We would learn about hypertension, and it would be essential hypertension. We don't know why they have their hypertension. Now we know it's a metabolic syndrome. It's having too much carbs. It's insulin resistance. It's inflammation. So many of the things that we didn't really know why people had those diseases. Now we know so much more about it. Yeah.
You bring up an interesting point that I've been kind of sharing, and I'm actually coming off of a conference and had this kind of very specific conversation, which is, I think people, when they go see an allopathic physician, they believe that what the physician is doing is searching for the root cause. And you just kind of highlighted, like, we didn't really look for the root cause. Like, now we know it's, metabolic syndrome, and now we know that it's carbs and insulin resistance. Do you have a sense that in medical school they're yet shifting that mindset? No. you're shaking your head.
I was actually co-writing a book on the vagus nerve now, for example. Now we know how important the vagus nerve is. And I just thought, okay, let me go back to the university bookstore and see the same books. Okay, are they updated? Do we now know more about the vagus nerve or in the books? No, nothing. And there's still, they look in principle exactly the same as I read them 30 years ago. When I leaf through them, it's exactly the same curriculum, more or less. So no, I don't think they learned that.
It's a little frustrating, right? I think we kind of understand, once you get out of allopathic medicine, like, everything kind of revolves around the gut. That's why you're writing a book about the vagus nerve, right? That's really important, that gut-brain axis. And how much nutrition did you learn? And I think in medical school, and I think current physicians are not learning that much nutrition either.
Yeah, no, we didn't learn much, and probably what we learned was even wrong. I remember we asked, okay, could eating too much carbs be a cause of diabetes? No, they said they were just laughing, So even what we learned didn't seem to be true either. Of course, at the time, ultra-processed food was not a thing as it is now. Yeah, it was the old-fashioned way, don't eat so much fat and so on.
I can share, my son has ADHD, and I've been very specific. He's been on medication, but I haven't increased his dose. And so his weight is at least 4 times when he was first, prescribed. And so he's taking about 1/4 of the dose per pound of body weight, or per kilo, right? And his pediatrician retired. We had to get on a call with a new pediatrician to kind of refill that prescription. And my son is explaining to this pediatrician, yeah, my goal is to get off of this medication. And the pediatrician turns around and says, no, this is a forever thing, like diabetes.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, you get your diet
Yeah.
right. In fact, my mom was diagnosed with diabetes at once, got her diet right, was off of everything, had everything into normal ranges. So it's my son, even funny part, he thought he muted the phone and says to my wife, "This guy doesn't know what he's talking about." And my wife was like, you didn't mute, so he needs to learn how to use mute.
But the doctor needed to know that,
Yeah.
And this is also what is frustrating for me as a doctor, that my colleagues, they are not paying attention. They are just trusting what they learned in medical school. And I think that they think, like, if I haven't heard about it, it cannot be important. So that is my impression of the attitude, and why they're so slow and I was slow too, right? What I know now that I'm talking about in the pulse cure, I only learned the last 6-7 years. So I've been doctor for 20 years in the same mindset. So I know where they come from. And they come from after reading medical books that are not, they're not funny to read, So for 6.5 years, you don't want to open them again. So you're not really looking for new information. You're just living off what you have learned already. So that's a tendency, and you're just trusting that whatever is important will just come my way passively. But what I found out, that you really have to be active. There's so much information and so many good podcasts, so much, because now, particularly since COVID, the best people in the world are on the podcast. So instead of listening to cardiologist number 300, in the world, that is in your school, you can listen to the best ones, and they will also be good at presenting what they know. That was not necessarily the situation in medical school.
Yeah, so the best ones are on podcasts like you. So I'm happy. I'm happy we're here to dive in. So your dad passed, and I love this kind of consistency of vision of I'm going to continue to travel, right? And I want to live longer than my father did, so that I can travel even more. So this thread is pretty awesome. We could probably do an entire podcast on your journeys and adventures and crazy things that have happened. So as you're trying to, you're in a position most people would think as a physician, like you would know the best how to live longer. How do you start crossing that gap of, okay, I'm a physician, I'm supposed to know everything about living longer. How do you kind of resolve, okay, maybe I don't, and what are the pieces of data that start coming in to cause you to really dig into to do research?
Yeah, the first thing is that I've done all the mistakes in my own book. So I was 20 or 40 pounds overweight. I did not train. I did not care about what I was eating or sleeping or any of the advice that I'm doing, talking about in the book. But I could see in the mirror then suddenly that I had neglected my own health. I started to look like my patients. And then I think the reason why I had neglected my health was that I thought that, or our impression in medical school, that if you did everything right, you lived for 3 to 5 years longer, but it would take you 3 to 5 years of intentional activity to do that. Just say if you're sleeping 1 hour more every day, from your 20 to your 80 years old, that is 3 years. And then of course, if you're exercising 1 hour a day, that's another 3 years. So what I just thought is that there's nothing to be gained extra time for doing that. There's no reward. So if you don't particularly like to sleep longer or like to exercise, why would you do it? Now we know that there are more than 2 decades of extra life to be made, and that is from a huge American military service research that shows that if you do the right things, like I'm talking about in the Pulse Cure, it's very, very similar, of course, then you can live 24 years longer than if you don't do that. And that is also my impression as a doctor, because of course I pay extra attention to the ones who get into their 90s and are still vital. What are they doing? How do they live? How do they present themselves? And in the same way, who dies at 65? What do they do? And then after you've seen like tens of thousands of patients, the picture becomes very clear what those people do. And that is very consistent with this 24 years of difference between doing everything wrong and doing everything right. So you don't have to do everything right either. You just have to do enough things right, I think. There's no need to go like optimizing and spending all your days, and the only thing that you have in your head is how to live healthier. But I think you should invest maybe an hour every day for something that is healthy, and it's not only a reward you will get like 30 years from now. Whatever gives you a longer life also will give you more well-being and better health in the moment. It's the same things, and better performance at whatever you do.
Yeah, so it's not just that you get 10 to 20 or specifically 24 according to that study years, it's that those years are actually better, right? Like you have more control over your faculties, be they mental or physical, and that really is important. And I mean, to correct me if I'm wrong, you feel better. Right. Like, so you wake up the next day and you haven't eaten McDonald's and you have actually exercised, and there's dopamine associated with exercise, and there's all these, neurotropic brain factors that are coming in that are like, right. Like that's how you feel.
Absolutely. I feel younger now than 15 years ago. Definitely. And maybe the biggest thing also was cutting alcohol. I used to have a couple of glasses of wine every day. That was doctor's orders at the time.
Yeah.
So of course, just quitting that gives you a lot of energy, and you get to feel refreshed more or less every morning. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's
And,
some.
and last year I was running New York Marathon. I would never have been able to do that 10 years ago.
And congratulations. That is quite a challenge and quite an accomplishment. Do you not drink at all, or you just drink 2 glasses once a week, or
Yeah, no, now it's probably 3 times a year.
3 times a year? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because life has become so busy also after the success of the Pulse Cure. Because in Norway, the book has sold what would be equivalent to US numbers would be 2.5 million copies. So locally in Norway, it has been a roller coaster ride now for almost close to 2.5 years. So I cannot afford wasting any energy on something that is not being productive, really.
So do you think I think this is clear. So you kind of one of your numbers is that you've treated 1% of the population. Is it maybe 25% of the population has read your book or something, or like where?
No, that would be the same amount, or maybe more. But it has sold like 40,000 copies, and then added to that would be the audibles. Which would be 1% and 1% of the U.S. population, that would be 30, 3.5 million people, that you would reach. So of course this is Norway, so it's smaller.
It's a pretty good saturation. That's pretty awesome. So now you start kind of going down this, hey, I need to exercise, I need to eat better. When do wearables really come onto your radar?
So some 5 years into that journey, I became aware that it was possible to track the autonomic nervous system by using heart rate variability. And for 2 years, I used an ECG monitor that I had on my chest that was a bit bulky to use, cumbersome to use. So for 2 years, I used that, only got the graphs, had to interpret everything myself, because the Pulse Cure is the first book in the world on how to use the wearables compared to lifestyle strategies. So I just had to find out, where does this stress come from? Because I had learned in medical school that the autonomic nervous system is fight, flight, and freeze, and rest and digest. And as I was never fighting or freezing, I had to assume that when I get this device on my chest, I will see only harmony, only the parasympathetic restful mode. And what I saw was totally the opposite. It was stress all the time. And I couldn't understand, so I had to detangle this and find out why am I stressed. And then I found that what we would generally regard as stress, that would be mental stress. Is it something at work? Do you struggle in the relationship? Is it just too many, not enough hours in the day? Or maybe you are like a really stressed person of the personality. But what I found stressful was alcohol, was eating food that you cannot tolerate. It was not sleeping enough. It was training too much or too little. It could be altitude, which according to Whoop that I still have on my right wrist here, altitude is the second largest stress factor. So if I was going up to the mountains, I would be further stressed, because of the altitude and less oxygen at the altitudes. I could see that if I was eating chili, that I had eaten, of course, all my life, that would stress me tremendously. So suddenly you start realizing that there are a lot of hidden stressors that will be revealed in the heart rate. Because I would never, until I could see these numbers, I would never even start thinking about in the morning how I felt compared to what I was doing yesterday. I wouldn't see the connection. So you would wake up in the morning and feeling this way or that way, and okay, you had no clue as to what made that happen. You would just think that, okay, there was something in my sleep. But when you get the wearables, and then I'm talking about particularly the Garmin watches, it's only the Garmin watches that can allow you to like micromanage your stress levels 24/7. I know that Aura has a rudimentary stress level during the day, but it's clearly not as accurate as Garmin's. The Whoop band is not too bad. They also have stress levels during the day, but compared to the Garmin ones, they're way behind. I would say. So when but of course you will see the same thing on your Aura ring, that if you have been having some drinks or a late night meal, that would affect it. So also the timing of your eating. So most people find that when they do time restricted eating, maybe 8 hours or 10 hours, that will be visible on the Garmin watch or in the Aura ring. Also, they would see that temperature will affect it a lot. So to get the temperature down on your bedroom or go on a cold plunge, ice baths, this kind of activities will also improve the recovery.
It's interesting because that's a stress, right? And then it's kind of a peak short-term stress and then levels out. Do you have any thoughts? Is it sensors on the Garmin? Like, you're obviously an expert in this. Do you think it's sensors on the Garmin versus Oura Ring, or is it potentially just the algorithms?
I think it's both. I think it's the capacity of a small ring compared to a large bulky watch. It's just the data power and the battery power, and how much they can measure. So that is one thing, but the most important thing is that Garmin bought the Finnish company First Beat Analytics. So they just bought the algorithms from a company that has been doing physiological measurements for more than 20 years and put them into their watches. And also improved them, I would say, because I've been using both of the systems simultaneously. So I would say that the system has been further improved. So that is the big difference, I think.
So what first caused you to throw it? Because you kind of described it as bulky and a little inconvenient, and you already knew what was going to happen when you attached it to you, right? You were going to be in a non-stress state, a rest and digest state all the time. What convinced you to kind of throw on this bulky thing?
That was to put it on. I just saw that this is so valuable information. I just knew I had for some time known that the autonomic nervous system is involved in more than just these two states of rest and digest and fight, flight, and freeze, because I had been doing photography. I had understood that, and teaching photography, that we must be using this system also when we take pictures, also when we are hunting. I thought we have to use this system. And so that is why when I heard about the possibility of using these devices, I immediately understood that this is so valuable information, because it's an insight to parts of our body and physiology that we are not able as doctors to see otherwise. And it shouldn't be a surprise, because it's the heart rate. We use heart rate all the time. When I see any patients, one of the first things I'm looking for is the heart rate of the person. And the heart rate and the heart rate variability, HRV, of course, when you have this on 24/7, you combine it with great companies, with artificial intelligence, you just have what I'm often referring to as a dashboard of your physiology. So when you have the heart rate, you have the temperature, you have the oxygen level, you have the movement pattern, and then add algorithms from millions of users and artificial intelligence. And when you have this instrument on your hand, it is just a source of information that is so important, and it gives you the power. Because normally you feel something and you go to the doctor and you wait until the doctor comes up with the answer on that 10-minute, consultation.
Yep.
And then you're out of there, and this gives you the power. It gives you the dashboard. So it's not only the doctor who has a dashboard, every 3 months or so. You have it available when you want, around the clock.
Well, and it kind of goes to we're all N of one, and that actually makes me wonder, how much are physicians taught that individuals are very distinctive, like, or are they just kind of treated as like not N of one, but they're all one?
Well, guess what?
It's much easier.
Yeah, yeah, they don't think in that way. So what we are trained for as doctors is to see a huge RCT study with maybe 1,000 people, and then you get presented with the average, and that is what we use. Of course, the average is useless, because what you will see when you start using the wearables is that we are very individual. So the information on how an average responds to a certain medicine or a certain activity means really nothing. And this is what gives you an N01 information on how do you react to chili or alcohol or training or sleep or whatever. So we are as individual on the inside as on the outside, I would say. And I get, like on Instagram and other sources, I also get so much information and questions and pictures of curves from Aura and Garmin. And so I get insight into so many people's nervous systems also. So I can clearly see that we are very, very individual. And this is a kind of preventative, individualized, personalized medicine. And I start the pulse cure in the book. The first thing you will read there is a quote from Albert Schweitzer, a doctor of the 19th century, who said that the doctor of the future will be oneself. So this is a part of that revolution, that when often I find normal people who are health conscious and have a minimum of curiosity will know more than their doctors in these fields in a couple of weeks. It's not difficult. So what you have to know to get the overview of what can happen to you of diseases and what to do about them, that will take you 6 years. To know how to avoid them, 6 days. I would even go down to maybe 6 hours. I mean, the pulse cure takes 7 hours on the Audible. And mainly when you hear it the first time, it's not, incorporated in your brain, but the information there is what you need to be able to live beyond the norms, to live as long as you can in a healthy way, and keep your brain span too, not only your lifespan but your brain span. So
I love that you threw in live beyond the norms. Thank you. The podcast. So is there a little part of you that is upset that there might be some N of one person out there who can have chili and it not get them fired and not have the same impact on you? It's because you've mentioned it more times, like it's a lot high probability, right?
Yeah. There are many others who cannot tolerate it. I can see that. And I can also see, for example, they would send me a screenshot of their curves. So they would have chili and be stressed until 1 a.m. and then they go into the cold shower, and then the curve goes straight up again. So then they have mitigated the stress from the chili. And with alcohol also, I can see that I would love to drink alcohol, and not be wasted the day after.
Yeah.
And I would quite often see people that they can have 2 glasses of wine, no problem.
Yeah.
Or a small problem. I would rather say a small problem, because Whoop, the medical responsible for Whoop, Kirsten Holmes, was asked if they had seen anybody who could have a glass or a unit of alcohol and not get stressed, and she said no, they hadn't seen that. But the degree of how stressful it is will be individual.
Hey, super quick break from the podcast. Hopefully you're loving it. This is a way you can support the podcast and take advantage of a great offer. We're offering 50% off of one of our MCT bottles. MCT is an amazing oil. Add the ESS 60 molecule to it. It's even more amazing. All you got to do is leave a review on iTunes. Send us a notification that you've left that review. We'll get you a coupon code. That'll get you 50% off of our MCT oil and free shipping. Back to the podcast.
So you say I'm going to start digging into HRV, but before we go there, you're going down this path of wearables. You're learning new information. You're kind of expanding outside of your allopathic knowledge. Anytime you're learning new stuff, you want to share it with friends, colleagues. How are your colleagues kind of as you're going down these paths and talking of N of one and like these are good things? How are they reacting to what you're sharing with them?
In the beginning, they were reacting pretty predictably that this was useless information, and I can understand that because if I only heard of people having the Garmin watch, they have a body battery, they have a stress, you can see the stress levels, I would think that this is too good to be true. It cannot be right, and so I can understand that. But since I had used these different the ECG monitor, I could put the curves on top of each other, and I could clearly see how useful it was. So if I hadn't had those 2 years of experience myself, I probably would have reacted in the same way, that this is just a gimmick from a company. You don't listen to it. But as the book has caught on, and so many people, of course, so many doctors struggle with the diffuse symptoms of stress. So burnout, fatigue, headache, muscle pains, joint aches, lack of sleep, depression, anxiety, all these different stress-related symptoms. So they understood that because the patients came to them, saying that, oh, I got so much better from following the pulse cure and using this watch, so they were kind of dragged along, by their patients. And of course, when they got the watches and systems themselves, then they also understood the value of this, or so many of them. So it's not really controversial as it was, when the book first came out.
My next question is, did they teach you HRV in school, in medical school? I think the answer is no, but let's kind of and answer that. And then what is HRV? What are we looking at? What is the value of this data point?
Yeah. So no, we did not learn about heart rate variability. And the first time I heard about heart rate variability was on a sailing trip with my family. We had sailed, well, from somewhere in the Caribbean through the Panama Canal and through French Polynesia. And I was in a hammock reading The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk.
Yeah.
And he was there mentioning that they were using heart rate variability as a measurement to find out the state of their psychiatric patients. He's a psychiatrist. So that is the first time I ever heard about it. And then I learned much more afterwards. And heart rate variability is like watching your heart rate with a magnifying glass. It can tell you so much more than just the heart rate in itself. So it's a variation between heartbeats. And that will tell you whether you are in the sympathetic stressful state or in the parasympathetic restful recovery state, which is obviously important information to know. And the way it can do that is that when we are in the relaxed state and we breathe in, then the heart rate goes up a little bit as there's more oxygen in the lungs. It kind of speeds up a little bit in milliseconds. When we breathe out in the restful state, the heart rate will go a little bit down, save some energy while there's less oxygen in the lungs. But if we are in the stressful state, then there will be no difference if you are breathing in or out. It will beat like a metronome and beat like a clock. So this is how the wearables can tell whether you are in the stressful state with a metronome pattern, or in the restful state with a kind of a wave pattern where the heart rate goes up and down. And this is heart rate variability. And you want to have the possibility to get into a good heart rate variability, because so many people are locked in that stressful state. They're not able to go into the restful state. Like I almost wasn't. Rarely I was in the parasympathetic mode because of alcohol, because of lack of exercise, because of what I was eating, and also because I was in Norway. We have small bags of nicotine that we put under the lip, which is also very stressful. Raises your resting heart rate by 10. and so it's also very stressful. 25% of the youth in Norway uses it. Like vaping would be the same. Probably you have that in the US.
Well, and
So,
we call it dip, right?
okay,
It's associated with baseball players and normally people kind of
okay,
in rural areas, farmers, etc. But you know, lots of teens have messed around
yeah,
with it.
that would also be stressful. So this is how you can use heart rate variability as a measurement of the autonomic nervous system and your stress balance.
So, heart rate variability. As I'm taking a breath, I have a time between heartbeats, right? And I don't know about how many heartbeats would we have taking a normal. Well, I mean the breath.
So a normal resting heart rate would be 60. A normal, healthy resting heart rate. If you
Right.
have a resting heart rate of 70 or 80, I think you will not be in the parasympathetic mode probably at all. Your body will always be working in overdrive to manage this basic daily living, right? So if you have a healthy heart rate, that would most of the time be 60. Then when you breathe in, the heart rate goes up to maybe 80, and then or 70, I would say. Your heart rate will go from 60 to 70 when you breathe in, and maybe down to 50 when you breathe out. So on the device that I had on my chest, I could see that difference. I could see the fluctuations very clearly. And that would be kind of the range that I would see. And if I was in the stressful state, it would be hardly be any difference. It would be maybe 70 or 75, you know, barely being a different from beat to beat. And you can feel that if you're if you test in the morning, and you put your finger to your carotid artery, you should be able to feel this difference from breathing in and out, to sense this going up and down a little bit.
You've got this HRV data. You enjoy drinks, like drinks are fun. Was there any part where you were wrestling with like it's clearly saying that I'm in the sympathetic mode, but I don't feel like it, right? Because I feel like my life is good. Was there any kind of conflict in you really kind of deciding to make significant changes?
I would in general see the difference. So I would feel the difference from having a meal with chili or alcohol, or a late night meal with sugar or some crisps and something that I also never eat again. Hardly ever eat a chocolate, and because I can see the effect on the health. But sometimes I do. Sometimes I know that, okay, I know that this will stress me so much, but it's worth it for this occasion, so that you can get a kind of a qualified choice, that you know what is happening and you still go for this choice, even though you know the result. So you shouldn't be too rigid either. You know, you should be flexible. What you want is flexibility. You want to be able to push your boundaries and perform at your best, but you also want to be able to calm down totally, to be in a totally relaxed state. So you want to be able to have control of this yourself. So you're not just depending on outside circumstances, so that if life is calm, you are calm, and if things are stressful, you're stressed. You want to have the liver to this control.
So let's talk about a little bit more about the Pulse Cure. You've got some HRV data. What kind of recommendations are you making in the Pulse Cure about what to do with that data?
Yeah, you should make sure that you sleep 7 to 8 hours of restorative sleep, as measured in your heart rate. And there are several advice on what to do about that. And you should exercise according to your general stress levels. So if there's a lot of pressure, maybe you should turn down the intensity and the duration of your exercises accordingly. And you should minimize alcohol, obviously. You should stay away from ultra-processed food, and many people tolerate bakery goods, from grains and flour-based food, tolerate it really poorly. Breath work is a super efficient way to calm yourself down. So there will be several different breathwork exercises in the book, because that's a way to tell your ancient nervous system that it's quiet out there and you can calm down and get into the recovery mode. And also, you could use cold. So cold is important, as we just talked about. You can use the cold shower or a cold plunge or turn down the heat. That is something that you can do. Yeah. And pay attention to your VO2 max, like you will get from your Garmin watch. You will see your VO2 max, your fitness level. That will give you information on how intense you can do your workouts. And for women, I'm not sure if you have many women listeners, but from women in the fertile age, the menstrual cycle will be a huge influence on the stress levels. So the week before menstruation will be a huge physiological load on your system that becomes visible in the heart rate. And I can clearly see that the level is as big as a hard COVID infection. So of a really strong COVID infection,
wow.
that would be the same pattern of heart rate variability as I see in the PMS symptoms, women who have the PMS symptoms. Another thing that is also very useful is to see the effect of a disease, either if you have the flu or if you have been through some minor surgery or major surgery, of course. Then you can see how long your system will be struggling after that. Usually will be surprisingly long. It can take a month and a half to recover from a strong flu or a strong COVID infection.
Wow. And during that time, one, we know you should be moving, right? Like the old school thought was, hey, just lay in bed, but you should actually be moving, but it should be very low, like maybe zone 1 and maybe zone 2, but probably zone 1 movement, or what would your thoughts be there?
And you would see the effect on your Garmin watch. You would see that the exercise that I could tolerate easily a month ago, I have no chance of tolerating now. That after I've done this easy exercise, my stress levels can be high throughout the night, for example, is something that you're able to see. So the Garmin watch will give you, and I'm not sponsored by them, no affiliations.
Yet.
No, and for me, it would be better if the other watches had the same capability, because Garmin has a small portion of the market. If Apple watches were as good, that would be great. So the Garmin watch will give you training readiness, or at least the better watches give you training readiness to show how ready are you to exercise today. And then if that is low, okay, you should take it really, really easy. And the level that you need for health reasons, they can be really, really low. So if you want to perform and be, the top 2% in VO2 max, and okay, that will take a lot of exercise. But just to be, in the good part, and the upper 25%, it doesn't take so much exercise. I would say if you go running or jogging or similar intensity activity, maybe like 45 minutes 3 times a week should be more than enough.
Right. Well, and VO2 max, I think the best way to increase it is the short, really intense, like sprints or on a Carol bike. I think they call it the re-hit kind of training.
Yeah. Some high intensity training. Yeah, that would be good.
All right, so we're about to get to our wrap-up questions. This has already been a fascinating conversation. I did have one other thing I just thought might be interesting. Have you played around with like brain trainers, like Brain Trap or Muse or Mindy or Visor? And do you have a preferred one if you like them?
Muse.
Yeah.
So I've been using Muse. I really like that one. I think it's an easy one to use. So that's the one I prefer. I have some other ones as well, the Mendy, but I think the Muse, I like the way that you can listen to the brain waves and what you hear from the birds and the noise of a jungle, for example. When you calm your mind, the noises will be more harmonic. And so I would go for the Muse band, yeah.
It's great. I've played around with the Mindy, with the visor a little bit. I haven't played around with Brain Tap, and I know Dr. Porter, I've interviewed him, and then the Muse, I haven't played with either yet. All right, Dr. Færø, let's jump into our wrap-up questions. Do you have a target age that you want to live to?
I would live to be 100. Actually, on Spitsbergen, that's an island very north of Norway. It's close to the Arctic, to the North Pole, actually. And I think in 2061, when I will be 93 years old, there's a solar eclipse. And I want to be there and be able to climb up to the mountain there and see it. So that is one thing. I've already booked it. I put on Facebook that I'm going to be there. But I would love to go beyond that and hopefully be 100 years old. Hopefully more, but I think that then we would need artificial ways to do that. So, and what will happen in those next, 40, 45 years until that, hopefully there will be some way that is possible to extend my life. But in the meantime, I want to try to exploit the time that is already there. I want to make every half year, that has been my strategy all my life. I want to make each half year a lifetime in itself, right? So that you will do different things. That is why I've never had a steady job, but I will try to compose every half year and do different things. So, and if if it's a too long time that it becomes repetitive, then I start looking for new things. Because when you have learned something and you get used to it and you already like 80, 90% good at it, you want to try something new and more challenging, or yeah. So there's a lot of things to see in the world. So I could probably fill 1,000 years with interesting things to do. I would have no problems doing that. So
you and me both. 1,000 years would be a great. I kind of have two targets, which is where we sit today medically, right? I have always just kind of had the number 125, but there's a part of me that's extremely hopeful and very positive about significantly longer. So very good. How long do you think humans can live?
I think now, as in the situation now, probably 125. That the oldest woman was 122. So probably around that. We are made to deconstruct, right? What we can do in the current situation is when we do many enough good things, we should be 92 or 93 years old. And then we will be healthy until we are 90, or at least vital as we will be happy with. And then in the next 2 or 3 years, it goes quite fast down. This is a pattern that I see in the patients that have a health that I want to, copy. So in the end there, you can eat as many blueberries you want or go hiking. You will you will die, unfortunately.
All right, and we're kind of running short on time, so like real rapid fire, what are 2 to 3 protocols, habits, mindsets that, let's call them shortcuts because everybody likes shortcuts, for longevity and a long health span that you would share?
Habit, mindsets. I think just a mindset that you have control of this to a quite much larger degree than you were thought. So that I would say is the most important. And the mindset of being curious, to be not taking life for granted, to enjoy every moment, just to see the small things, to be grateful for just being able to see, that is a sense developed from our ancestors throughout millions of years, and we are on a continuous line of reproduction from the first life on Earth, for like must have been then almost 4 billion years. And if any of those generations had not succeeded in reproducing, somebody else would maybe be here, but we would not be here, right? So just the gratitude and not take that for granted, and to spend, you can't be mindful every minute, but try to be mindful most of the minutes, that you're not suddenly getting closer to your grave and you didn't realize what was at stake. That would be, I think the ones that live long, they have this kind of a mindset.
That makes sense.
And that would be a life worth living. It's not, if you're just watching TV and just not living your life, then why be 100? So it needs to be a life worth living.
Absolutely. Dr. Færø, how can people contact you?
They can contact me. I'm Dr. Torkil on Instagram, dr.torkil. We have a website where you can see a video lecture. We're building up a website. It's called thepulsecure.com. It's possible to see a free video lecture there where I explain the things I've been talking about. And of course, the book is available everywhere. They may not have it in the physical bookstore, but on Amazon, and it's also an audiobook. Maybe podcast listeners love to rather listen to a book rather than reading it.
Excellent. And what in the near future are you excited about?
Oh, I'm writing a book on sun exposure. So that is the free energy source that we have overlooked as doctors. So the energy, our cells use the energy, and that is also visible in the heart rate variability. So sun exposure, I can see that when people go from the very north of Norway and then they go for like 2 weeks in Thailand, their heart rate variability just doubles.
Wow.
Yeah, and even if they have late night meals and some drinks, so the sun is
That's
really
awesome.
important. So I'm very
Excellent.
very happy about writing that book.
So a book on sunlight, and there's a little, it's funny how the last interview was with a photographer who had a photography school, who was talking about sunlight and its impact, and that drove him to start a red light therapy company.
Yeah, and I must say, because I saw how important, because photographers seem to live so long, even if their physical appearance would not, give that away. And then I thought the activity of taking pictures was the helpful thing, which it probably is. But it was also that you are out there where the light is, and what is giving you the light. So the sun is shining on you also,
Yeah.
of course.
Giving you that energy. Dr. Torkil, this has been great. You can find him at Dr. Torkil on IG, and then also thepulsecure.com. Torkil is Torkil. That will be in the show notes. Dr. Torkil, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Grace. Great to be here.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Live Beyond the Norms podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow. Also, make sure not to be that guy, the guy sharing this podcast with people who are not interested in living beyond the norms. If you would like to learn more about the ESS60 molecule, the molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, a full 90% extension of life, visit myvitalc.com. That's myvitalc as in carbon.com.